going to discuss many subjects in regards to money issues. The subject of exploitation, hona'at dvarim, meaning either speaking or causing pain to someone else, not necessarily something that have a restitution, is a part of discussion today. We're also going to talk about credit card, using a credit card for someone or having a credit card from someone who doesn't have the capability to have credit cards, the issue of interest, the issue of using in the first place. We're going to talk about consecrated property, which is, for example, nowadays, treasury or trustees of a non-profit, or someone who is in charge for charity fund. Certain money was missing. Is that person obligated to pay out of pocket? When, where, and how? In those days, it was a time that machzit a shekel, 3 times a year, they used to collect for the temple treasury 15 days before the holidays of Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And sometimes money was missing. And the question is, do you go back to the donor and ask them to pay again? Do you impose on the treasurers to take an oath? That's part of the discussion. The great rabbi by the name of Rabbi Shlomo Kluger asked a question related to kmiot, to amulet. Those of you who visited Israel, you know that it's popular. I'm not here to criticize or to say anything for those people who use it as a business, but there are people who claim Kabbalists selling kmeot, selling amulets containing name of gods, etc. And someone stole from someone this type of things, if that carry value, if that have a normal monetary restitution. If say, we talk about collections or antiques, that it's hard to evaluate, or there's no market values, can be ties, can be stamps, can be books, collections. How exactly you evaluate that, it's based on our sugya. So we're going to study today in Tractate Bava Metzia, page 58. We'll start in the middle of the page, 30 lines from the bottom of page 57b. So we learned so far in the Mishnah, when it's come to a thief, we impose upon the thief a kefel, a double portion of payment. But we differentiate between a regular thieves, when Reuven stole something from Shimon, versus when is the thievery took place with something that is not subject of double payment, such as slaves in those days, documents, land, and consecrated properties. So the Mishnah said, Ein bahem tashlumei kefel. Those 4, again, slaves, documents, land, and consecrated property, will not impose a biblical double payment the same as a regular thievery. Menan emile, how do you know that? The Tanu Rabbanan. The Torah said, we have, as we explained several times, 4 different baileys, 4 different guardians. So we said, if we have a shomer chinam, someone who's a free bailey, a fellow that watch over, Reuven is asked to watch over a valuable item that belongs to Shimon without getting paid for that, and that deposit was stolen from him. So the moment it follows the word of that person that he said, I don't know what happened, the one who did it needs to pay double portion. If it is the guardian himself, the bailey, he needs to pay double because he basically lied. And we say that Maharam Shif explains that is the derivative indirectly from the pasuk, that it's not only the thief himself, it can be the bailey that lie and behave like a thief. So they said, we derive it from one of the 13 principles that we use every day, Rabbi Ishmael principles, which is a klal, prat, klal, a generalization, specification, and then generalization. The source is the book of Shemot, chapter 22, verse 8. The Torah said, Al kol dvar pesha, al kol bar pesha, for any matter of trespass, klal, that's very general, because he said, I'll call for anything. What does that mean? So then the Torah go to a specification and said, Al shor for an ox, Al chamor for a donkey, Al se, Al salma. It's all different name of details for a ox, donkey, sheep, garment. So that's basically detail. And then the Torah said, Al kol aveda asher yoma. Then back they said in very general, in any matter of loose things. So you have here a generalization again. So one of the 13 principles said, I ata dan ela ke'eina prat. So you may deduce the verse that is referring only to the item similar to the details. So how you derive it here? Said, ma prat meforash davar hamitaltel vegufo mamon. I've called davar hamitaltel vegufo mamon. The same here you define it that it's applied to a movable property and has a intrinsic monetary value. So the same applies to anything like that. What is the exclusion? Yatsu karkaot she'enam metaltelin. Land, you cannot, it's not a movable property. Yatsu avadim shugshu lekarkaot. Slaves we compare to land in many areas of halacha. And yatsu shtarot, also a documentation, it's also excluded. She'af al pi shemitaltelin, that even you can carry them, it's a movable property, you do not have en gufan mamon, they have no intrinsic monetary value, and the value of a material on which the document is written is negligible. Documents are valuable only because they serve as proof for monetary claims. So they said, Hekdeshot amar kral re'eu, consecrated property, the Torah is excluded by using the term re'eu. He said others, which is another person, and we derive from that re'eu, another person, velo hekdesh, and not a temple treasury. So that's basically a derivative what we mentioned from Rav Shlomo Kluger. Based on that, ask a question: if someone stole kameot, amulets, so is that something that you impose gufo kemamon, you impose kefel, you impose a double payment because it carries shovi mesuyam, some value, or not? Now the truth is, he brought the Gemarrah in the beginning of Perek Ezeu Neshech. Over there, they speaks about possibility of gezel bekarka. In general, we said you cannot steal a land. Land is a land. But the Gemarrah there said that there are situations that you can steal land, such as you remove the boundary. You go at night and you remove the boundary between the two properties. And many cases, as much as you have registrations in many states, in many places, you can still play that game. I know, for example, in this neighborhood, you don't have fences. There's only one neighbor, in my best recollection, 15 years here, that have, because of the dogs, they have fences. But other than that, there's no fences. So you can go to the city, in a registration, you see a general lines. But let's face it, if someone put a fence, and then the next day you move the fence, it's very hard to recognize that he is basically taking a property from someone else. So there is a concept of stealing property, and it's still a possibility even in our days. But anyway, the Mishnah said, "Velo tashlumei arbaa v'chamisha." One of the examples of payment that the Torah imposed is called the 4 and the 5 times of principle. So these payments do not apply to consecrated animals. So, meaning, if someone stole an animal that belongs to the temple treasury, and then he slaughtered the animal, he sold the animal, so you don't impose the 4 and the 5th payment in a biblical terms because it belongs to a consecrated temple. So since you don't have a kefel, you don't have a double portion, is nothing in the Torah that speaks about 3rd and 4th payments. The Gemarrah said, "My tama, tashlumei arbaa v'chamisha marachmana velo tashlumei shlosha ve'arbaa." The Torah speaks about 4 and 5th payment, but not payment of 3 or 4 times written in the Torah. So what you see here, since is no double payment and therefore is no 3rd and 4th payment, so therefore you cannot impose. So the Rashi in Bava Kamma 78b said something that it's really mind-boggling. He said that it's even the principal, he doesn't need to pay. But after searching that with my chavrusa yesterday, Rav Shub of Yeshiva Ner Israel, we studied together for, let's say, about 15 years. So we search the subject, and we try to, based on the few Gemarot and Rashash, you try to say that the obligation, when it's all said and done, is to return to the Hagdish according to their current situation. Because in general, we go by Shovi Bishat Gzeila. You stole something, and it belongs to the temple treasury. So that item can be depreciate or increase the appreciation of that item. But you go only for the time that the item was at the time of that was stolen. So therefore, in our best knowledge, is the obligation just to return the item, but not the valuable principle that it's in a current situation. And we think that that's what Rashi meant over there in Bava Kamma 78b. But anyway, Shomer Chinam Eino Nishba. We learn that unpaid guardian does not take an oath of this item were stolen and lost. And again, what are the items? We talk about slaves, documents, land, and consecrated property. Here we learn in the book of Shemot, chapter 22, verse 6, Ki ten ish el re'ehu klal. When a fellow, the Torah said, delivers to his neighbors, that's a very general statement. Kesef or kelim, money or utensils or vessels, that's a detail. And then they prat. And then they said the word lishmor. Lishmor meaning to guardian. They said here begunav mi bet haish, but that's a mistake. The Gemara in Shvuot 43 said that the word is to guard. So that's basically chazar vekalal. That's generalization. Here we said klal uprat uklal. Generalization, detail, and generalization again. Iyatadan ela ke'ein haprat. Ma prat meforash. The same way as you deduce the verse referring only to the items similar to the details. So just as each of the item mentioned in the details is clearly defined as an item that is a movable property and has intrinsic monetary value, so too double payment is practiced with regard to any item that is movable property and has intrinsic monetary value. So מה פרט מפורש דבר מטלטל בגופו ממון, אף כל דבר מטלטל בגופו ממון, יצאו קרקעות, you excluded land שאינן מטלטלים, that you don't move land, יצאו עבדים שהוקשו לקרקעות, the same mindset. We talk about slaves that we compare to land, יצאו שטרות, you excluded documentation, שאף על פי שמטלטלים, that even they are movable, אין גופן Mammon, they are not, do not have intrinsic monetary value. Ekdeshot amarkra re'ehu, when consecrated property, the Torah said specifically another person that deposited there, velo shel hekdesh, but not something that belongs to the temple treasury. So, if you remember, in the previous shiur, in the previous daf, we learned the machloket, if the guardian of Hekdesh, Shomer Shel Hekdesh, the belly of the consecrated property of a temple treasury, there are witnesses, Yesh Edim Shepasha, there are witnesses that he was negligent. So if you go by the Tosfot, so Tosfot said, דיבור המתחיל שומר חינם, נראה דו הדין דאינו משלם, דאפילו שומר חינם מפשע, נראה דלא משלם. He says even that paid barely do not need to pay. The Rambam, the Maimonides, disputed that and said that he's a mazik, that he caused damage and he does need to pay. And it's a serious discussion by halacha if you have this, let's say, three fellows, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven owns the land next door to Shimon. Levi trespass because Reuven left the doors open of his yard in both sides. So Reuven trespassed toward Shimon, so Levi trespassed toward Reuven's property, and he went to Shimon and he caused damage. Since Reuven left the doors in his yard in both sides open, does he participate with the damage, meaning he needs to compensate the other party, Shimon, or not? That's basically the basic disputation here between Tosfot and the Rambam. If you follow the direction of Tosfot, is not. If you follow the Rambam, yes. Noseh sachar eno meshalem. The Mishnah continues, a paid guardian does not pay if these items were stolen or lost. So the Gemara asks, menahane milei, how you derive these things? The Tanu Rabbanan, the Torah said in the book of Shemot, chapter 22, they said that if you have a paid belly, that all of a sudden the item was stolen or lost. Ki ten ishel re'eu klal, if a person gives some deposit to his fellow, that's generalization. Chamor or shor ose, specific items such as, example, donkey, a sheep, etc. Prat, that's detail. V'chol be'ema lishmor, and then they said any animal. That's again, chazar v'klal is a generalization again. Klal uprat uklal, which is generalizations, detailed generalization. אי התדן אלא כן הבת, פרט, מפורש, דבר מטלטל בגוף ממון, אף כל דבר מטלטל בגוף ממון, the same mindset as we said twice already, יצאו קרקעות שאינם מטלטלים, יצאו עבדים שהוקשו לקרקעות, יצאו שטרות שאף על פי שמטלטלים בגופם ממון, הקדשות אמר קרא, ראו ולא של הקדש. So exactly the way we have before. Based on that, it's a response from Rabbi Isa Zalman Meltzer. It was a great late rabbi in Jerusalem. Was a question. Reuven rent an apartment from Shimon, and in the lease is no specifications. Levi came to Reuven as a guest, and he lit for his mother's memory a yortzeit candle, and all of a sudden when he came back from the synagogue, the room was totally burned. The question is, can you impose upon the guest the payment? Why? Because in general, if there's nothing specified in the lease, the owner, the landlord, he knows the tenant. He doesn't know the guests. So Rabbi Isa Zaman Meltzer Zatzal hold, he said that you're allowed to bring guests as much as you like to. What happened between you and the guests is your business. But in general, he argued and he said the guest did not accept, lo kibel atzmo dinei shmira, the guest did not accept upon himself to be a guardian. So the question is, how far you go with that? As in general term, according to Rav Meltzer, it's a two different mindset. Between landlord and tenant is one thing, and the tenant's right to bring guests is another subject. But anyway, you have a lot of derivative in halacha from this ruling, which again is disputable. So now we go back to the rules of the guardians. Remember, we talk in general of four guardians: one who get paid, one who not get paid, the one who borrow, etc. Shomer chinam eno nishba. If you have a unpaid barely, a guardian does not take an oath if this item were stolen or lost. And again, to make sure we all know, we talk about what? We talk about slaves, documents, land, and consecrated property. So a unpaid bali doesn't need to take an oath. Paid bali doesn't need to pay because, as we said, is no kefel, is no double portion, is no 4 and 5th payment. The Ritva hold that even shoel, a borrower, is exempt, but in a hekdesh is lo shayach, is not applicable in the consecrated property. So that's the reason we don't mention here. Veraminhu. We learn in the Mishnah in Tractate Shkalim, chapter 2, the first Mishnah. Bnei ha'ir sheshalchu et shikleihen. As we explained in the introduction, the Torah tells us in the book of Shemot, chapter 30, that we have the obligation to collect for the temple treasury a half a shekel. For every single person is to give that. And in general, we do it be'echad be'adar, the first day of Adar, we announce it. And the Rambam said that that's a biblical mitzvat aseh deoraita. Furthermore, the Rambam's hold that is not only in Eretz Israel, also listen carefully, the mitzvah of machzit shekel, according to the Rambam, applies also outside of Israel. So on the 25th day of Adar, they're beginning to take a collateral, matchilim lemashken. Basically they have 3 different times. One is before Pesach, 15 days before Shavuot, and 15 days before the Chag Sukkot. So whatever left is a shiarei alishka. They use it for the Jerusalem walls, they use it for others. It's called Trumat Halishka. So you have a situation here that the residents of the city, you collect this fund, you collect machzit shekel from every single person for the public offering, and all of a sudden, v'nignevu avdu, the treasure, either it was stolen or lost. The question is, what do you do now? So they said, here you see a huge differentiation at the time frame, what exactly that took place. If it happens, the contribution of the chamber had already been collected from the chamber, so therefore it's exempt the resident of the city from go back and pay money for the temple treasury. Page 58, Nishba'in lagizbarim. So the agents have to take an oath of a bali to the treasurer that they did not misappropriate all this money, all these coins. Now v'im lav, if it's not yet performed the mitzvah of the giving to Trumat Halishka, Nishba'in livnei ha'ir, they need to take an oath to the residents of the city. And then, unfortunately, ubnei ha'ir shoklin achrim tachtehem. So now you ask the donor to do what? To give again the money, right? And what happened is, nimtzeu o she'achziru maganavim. If all of a sudden you found the money, either because it was lost in some place and you discover it, or the thieves brought it back, therefore, eilu va'eilu shkalimen v'nolim lashana aba'ah. So they said that those money, they have already a status of what? Of consecrated property, consecrated shekels, and now it's belongs to the temple treasury. So what we have to do is, you have to use it for the following year, right? So what the Rishalmi explained at the end of the first chapter of Tractate Shkalim, that how exactly you use that money. Do you mean to say that the first collection you're using for this year, and the next year you use the second collection, or vice versa? It's also a Rambam and more. But the key is that you derive from that Mishnah that a free guardian needs to take an oath even when he was a guardian for a temple consecrated the treasure property. The Mishnah said that a free guardian, a bali that does not get paid, doesn't need to take an oath. So here you see a contradiction between the two Mishnayot. So the Gemarrah explained that contradiction. Amar Shmuel, Hacha benose sachar askinan. Here we deal with what? With different bali, with different guardian. This one is a paid one. So the idea you impose upon him to take an oath is not because you want him to be exempt from those liability to pay for the thief. He needs to get paid because he is a paid guardian. So in order for them to get paid, they have to take an oath that it's not in their domain. The Netivot HaMishpat in Shin Gimel explains that that's crucial because this money is basically a sacred, a consecrated money. So obviously the whole idea of taking an oath is to make sure that they are free from, in a sense, if they want to get paid, they need to take an oath. If they give away their payment, we don't impose upon him to take that person to take an oath. That's the chidush, that's the beauty, and now you reconcile the contradictions. The Gemara said, why you say that they need to take an oath to the treasurers. They need to take an oath to the people of the city. Why? Because the people who pay them is the resident of the city and not the treasurer of the temple. So the Gemara said, Amar Rabbi explained, since those agents, nishba'im levnei ir b'ma'amad gizbarim, they take an oath to the resident of the city at the presence of those treasurers. So meaning that the treasurer of the temple are there to listen, to hear that they are taking an oath. Ki heiche de lo nachshedinu. So in order to make sure that those treasurers do not suspected people for stealing money from the temple treasury. V'inamei, and another option, ki heiche de lo likru lo posh'im. So they want to make sure that they don't call them negligent. The treasurer, you know, people like to pass the buck. People like to blame other people. So we want to make sure that those treasurer will not call the agent, you are basically you didn't watch over. So that's the reason you have to do it at the front of the treasurer. Is a discussion in halacha. What do you do if you hire someone who's a paid belly, it's a paid guardian, and that paid guardian, he fall asleep? Are you still have the obligation to pay him or not? Based on our sugya. Good friend of mine, after the service, he went, when he was a student, and he was in one of those secret services guardian. So what happened, from time to time they sent a supervisor to watch over them. So he have a pen that take pictures, you know those pens that people carries, and he pictured that fellow while they fly that he just was napping, right? And when they landed, he was called to the head office and they fired him, right? Because he was caught when time that he's supposed to be up, that he was nap, right? But here is the same sugya. You have a paid belly. The paid belly was caught sleeping. Do you still have the obligation to pay? So anyway, the idea is me'ikar adin, for the essence of the law. You don't need to ask a person to take an oath. Based on that is another question: credit cards. Shimon, for all kind of reasons, doesn't have a credit card. Can be for bad or good reasons. Can be because he did something wrong or because he never established credit card. And there are certain companies that not serve you if you don't have credit card. So he basically have his buddy, his friend, his relatives, his family member, give him his or her credit card. Now he's using it. It's a lot of problems. Problem number one is interest, right? Problem number two is trace a situation for many reasons can happen that is no statement yes from credit card. So one fellow, for all kind of reasons, they are fighting, they're breaking up for all kind of reasons, and that fellow said to the other, give me my credit card. He takes, he says, pay me whatever you said that you pay the credit card. And the other fellow said, wait, show me a statement. Can you say that he needs to pay him now, or he needs to see the statement? The same applies to a upcoming son-in-law, right? A person marry someone. Let's say Reuven marry Leah, the daughter of Yehuda, and Reuven doesn't have any good credits. So Yehuda was taking a mortgage over property for the new couple, right? While the reality is that within themselves they have a separate contract that it basically belongs to his son-in-law and daughter or son-in-law. And he paid him and he paid a credit card, or he paid directly to the credit card or to the mortgage bank. But the reality is, on papers, it's on a different names. You know, people like that. It's a problem in halacha between the interest and other things based on this sugya. So now the Gemara asks, "V'hanik nevu she'avdu katani." We learn in the Mishnah that those coins was stolen or lost. V'shomer sachar b'gneva avada chayu v'mechayev. And if someone is a bailee for unconsecrated property, he needs to pay for what? For lost and for stolen. Even that we have here a loss of money that belongs to the temple treasury, so we do not impose upon those the same as regular monetary restitution that applies to what? To regular bailee, but agraihu mia lafsid. So the Chazon Ish explains, you can at least impose on them that they should not get paid. Why? Because they have the obligation, those agents, to watch over the treasure money from what? From being stolen or lost. So that's the reason they originally should get paid. So it means that they didn't complete it, the Chazon Ish explains, their obligation properly, and therefore they don't deserve to get payment. That's the Chazon Ish explained on Bava Kamma Zayin. Rabbi explained, you know what you're talking here? Here we talk about nignevu belistim mezuyan avdu shetavas finato bayam. Here we talk about armed people that came with arm and they pull out the gun. So even you get paid to guard, that's beyond your control. And the same when is the boat, unfortunately, the ship sink or at the sea. So this is beyond the person's capability. So therefore, you can't say that the person didn't do his job properly. So therefore, they're entitled to get paid. But as we said, in order to get paid, when it's all said and done, you not impose on them restitution, but in order to get paid, the person needs to take an oath. So the Ktsot HaChoshen derive from this that if the person refused to take an oath, so you don't get money, right? So any type of paid bailee, if it's a stolen or lost, and he somehow doesn't want to take an oath, so he not get paid. So what you're saying, any type of paid bailee that turns item was lost or stolen is not getting paid. So the Chazon Ish said no, you have to differentiate between this circumstance and any other circumstance. So the Chazon Ish explains that it's only here you have a situation like that, not other places in the Shas. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Hanamani Rabbi Shimoni Amar Kodashim shechayav b'achrayutan yesh lahem onah v'nishba'im lahem. If it's a consecrated property that the person have the responsibility, the obligation to bring a substitute in case something happened, therefore they have exploitation, and it's like his, and he needs to take an oath. We understand all of that when it's applied, when it's not already used as a collected. But דתניא, תורמין על העבוד ועל הגבוי ועל העתיד לגבות. We said that we collect for something that was lost, but those that are collected and not or for those who are destined to be collected in the future. So what you see here, the resident of the city is not have the responsibility to pay those shekels. אלא אמר רבי אלעזר שבועה זאת תקנת חכמים. This oath is rabbinic enactment. So basically the rabbinic enactment, the idea is me'ikar adin, you don't need to take an oath, but the rabbinic said that is a rule that people don't have the temptation to contempt with the consecrated property. People figure out, it's not a personal property, it belongs to the public, but the temple, so who cares? So therefore, if those shkalim lost before this was collected, so the agent needs to take an oath at the front of the residents of the city because they are the people lost, and if you don't find it, you impose on them payment. So the great Rabbi Yaakov Bloy from Yerushalayim, he asked a question. If a person promised to a charity fund $100, for example, and he put the check and he sent it to the charity organization, and all of a sudden the charity organization said they never received the check. The question is, does he have the obligation to produce another payment or not? Not necessarily check, can be other form of payment. So in short, he bring the Avnei Nezer, that try to say that we have to differentiate between a charity box, that you have it in your synagogue office, whatever it is, or mailing an envelope. Why? Because they bring in a Pitchei Choshen, they bring the Avnei Nezer and others that said, let's think in the modern days embassy. You have embassy, United States embassy in any other country. That spot belongs to the United States and vice versa. When you have embassies from other countries that occupied the land, that specific land internationally belongs to them. So think that mindset in comparison. When you have a box, that box is not yours. That box belongs to that organization. So you have this notion, logical notion, the moment you put something in that box, it's already departed from your domain. It's not already yours, so therefore you're free from responsibility. Versus when you mail something, that's different. You need to mail it again. We said that the paid belly doesn't need to pay for all these four we mentioned earlier, which is slaves, land, documentation, and consecrated property. רמי לרב יוסף בר חמא לרבא. נושא שכר אינו משלם ברמין הוא הסוחר את הפועל לשמור את הפרה. We have the law of a red cow, so you know that if a person contaminated, so they sprinkle the ashes of the red cow, and since it's so sensitive, because if someone touched to a corpse, so he's impure for 7 days, and then in order to purify it, you need to sprinkle the third and the 7 days. That's a biblical term in the book of Bamidbar, chapter 19. So you put a guardian to watch over this sacred, this very holy red cow. So what happened is that person hires someone to watch over, or lishmor et hatinok, to watch over a child from become ritually impure, lishmor et hazra'im, this is the Omer offering, to watch over the seeds. That's 70 days before Passover. They used to bring a special offering that has to be from the new corpse. That's Mishnah in Menachot 83. So the enotnim lo schar Shabbat. We're not allowed to get paid for Shabbat. לפיכך אין אחריות שבת עליו. So therefore, the responsibility for the Shabbat laws, it's not incumbent upon him, since he's not paid barely on that day. Schir Shabbat, Schir Chodesh, Schir Shana, Schir Shavua, if he was hired to do a weekly, monthly, yearly job or 7 years job, notnim lo schar Shabbat, because that muvla, that incorporate with the payment of Shabbat, because it's not spelled out just for Shabbat. לפיכך אחריות Shabbat alav. So therefore he have the responsibility for the Shabbat. So if it happens that it was stolen or lost in Shabbat, he needs to pay. מה אליו לשלם? לא להפסיד שכרו. It doesn't mean that he needs to pay, but the idea is that the ruling of the Braita is stating that the belly is responsible only with regards to fortifying his wages, because he was released the safeguarding of the item with which he has entrusted. So the Maharam Shif and Rashash said he's not getting paid solely because of that. He's not guarded properly. Now, we have a very yesod, a very essence, very important halakha, that a person not allowed to make money or to work on Shabbat. We all know that. So the question is, how you treated, for example, babysitter. You hire babysitting to work on Shabbat. So the Rav of the Betzin hold that when you hire a babysitter, you have to do it in a way that it's like a gift. It's not a payment for Shabbat. If you remember, we talked in the past about using mikveh on Shabbat, hotels, or chazanim, cantors that get paid for Shabbat and holidays. So usually what you do is you do it behavla'ah, and the Beit Yosef and others dealing how you treated the cantor for Shabbat is the tzorech mitzvah. So the same as we said here, para aduma, the same as red cow. But here the Beit Yosef tried to say that Shabbat, Chazan is connected to Shabbat. Rabbi Issan Zalman Meltzer said, he said it on behalf of the Brisker Rav. He hold that we all know that sometimes you need a doctor on Shabbat. So then the doctors, guess what they do? He bill you for Shabbat. But he was hired for pikuach nefesh, sometimes for saving life. So the question is, can he impose upon you a payment for his works that was done on Shabbat? So they try to bring a brisker of that in some circumstances possible, but if the money is ne'esar alav, is prohibited upon him, it's a problematic, it's not simple, because the Shevet HaLevi, the Minchad Yitzchak, the Chelkat Yaakov and others, dealing with, for example, we have those machines that have, they're selling bottles, cigarettes, all kind of things on Shabbat, phones, so, or nowadays you have computers, and there are people who are using the computers on Shabbat, right? All kind of other customers. Do you allow to collect that money that came from work on Shabbat? There's a discussion in Chelkat Yaakov and many others. It's not as simple as it sounds, but it's based on this sugiyah. Yachei reisha dekatane en acharut Shabbat alav achena melafsid staro. Umi itle schar Shabbat va'katane en notnim lo schar Shabbat. We said clearly that we not paid for Shabbat. Ishtik. He was אקוויאס. אמר למידי שמי הלך בהה, אמר לרב ששת, אך אמר רב ששת בשקנו מידו, וכן אמר רבי יוחנן בשקנו מידו. So they said that they perform an act of acquisition with him. So that was a special act of kinyan miyuchad, a special act of acquisition. So basically we have to say that it was a special kinyan, a special acquisition, but the regular person that is the guardian for the Hekdesh can be a yeshiva, can be a shul, can be a non-profit organization. Even if it was stolen or lost, he doesn't need to pay. So it's a big discussion among the Rishonim, how you treated and why is this rabbinic enactment. But the key is that people should not lo lezalzel behekdesho, that people should not treat consecrated property with contempt. If they knew that there is no oath, they'll negligent to safeguard the shekels properly. It's a discussion, many discussion over using money of Shabbat. For example, those people who make a money dailies, can be a different accounts that generate money. How you treated Schar Shabbat, the Minchad Yitzchak discuss how do you do it behavla'ah, the Beit Shmuel, the last Beit Shmuel, the Acharon. He discussed with Rabbi Yosef HaTzadik, the son-in-law of Nudab Yehuda, how you exactly treated this type of kinyanim. The Rambam said that a person needs to be obligated only if the Maaseh Kinyan was in exact, meaning you know exactly how much is it. The Beit Shmuel have a discussion over that, but anyway, we don't have time. So Rabbi Shimon אומר, קודשים שחייב באחריותם יש להם הונאה ושלא חייבותם אין להם הונאה. תנא כמד רבי יצחק ברבא, קודשים שחייב באחריותם חייב, שאני קורא בהם בהשם וכיחש, שלא חייב באחריותם פדוש, שאני קורא בהם באמיתו וכיחש. So that's the Rashi said that the פטור מהשם. So אמר לי כלפי לאיה, so he said to him, is the opposite? 58b, ipha mistabra. So it means that it's totally the opposite, which is the oath concerning sacrificial animal for which one does not bear responsibility is considered to be a matter related to God even more than an oath concerning to sacrificial animal for which one bears responsibility. As the later case is all by the person who in some respect. So they said, Amar le ismei, because it's משובש, is incorrect. אמר לי לא, אחי כאמר, הקודשים שלך באחריותם חייב, דיתרא בו מהשם וכיחש, שאינו חייב באחריותם פטור, דמעיט באמיתו וכיחש. Wish to have more time. רבי יהודה אומר, אף המוכר ספר תורה, even someone sells ספר תורה in a very expensive way, מרגלית ובהמה, אין להם הונאה. The same applies to someone who sell a pearl or an animal. Those items are not subject to halachot of exploitations. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda אומר, אף המוכר ספר תורה אין לה הונאה, שאין לה קצת דמיה. There's no limit because people paid for sefer Torah. It's a huge mitzvah, so you can't say that this is the fixed price. בהמה ומרגלית, so the same applies to a different jewelry. אין להם הונאה, מפני שאדם רוצה לזווגם, to match them, אמרו לו, ולא כל אדם רוצה לזווגם. Everyone wants to pair them. So an animal is paired with an animal is similar to strength, so that they can yoke together with the field. There's a famous story about Napoleon. that he went to Russia and he passed to Volozhin, he saw the Gaon of Volozhin. So he said to him, tell me, I'm going to win the war or not? So Gaon said to him, he forced him and he told him that he's not going to say anything. So he said, look, you have two different people who have a wagon and horses. You see the person, Baragala, have two horses, simple, cheap horses. They run nicely. We have the Paritz, the rich person, have one horse from Spain, one horse from Germany. They're not matched together, so therefore they're not going together. And that's what happened. The reality is the Russian were together in the war. Napoleon have the armed forces from different places, so did not get along. Which means that that's the limit. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera Omer אף מוכר סוס וסייס וחליתו במלחמה אל ההונאה מפני שיש בהם חיי נפש. So the question is, if someone is a heavy rain, is a storm, and he overcharged for umbrella, or someone see the tornado, so he start charging crazy price from people. So the Rav Stetner, Baal Orot Natan, Rav Wozner, Shevet Halevi, and others said the same apply to old collections and old antiques, stamps, ties, etc. If you have on or not, because the reality is that people take advantage for other people when it's come to this type of situations. The further Mishnah is dealing with another act of exportation, and the Mishnah said